Hey everyone, and welcome to Wahine Wealth Club, where we are redefining wealth for the modern Wahine.
Today's episode is brought to you by Mean Training. Mean Training is the premier personal training solution for individuals in Hawaii and beyond. Mean Training delivers results through its tailor-made programs crafted for each individual based on their goals, history, and fitness levels. Whether working in person or online, you'll be paired with a coach dedicated to seeing you succeed and committed to walking alongside you every step of the way. We're super excited to provide Wahine Wealth Club listeners with a special discount for online personal training. So if you go to www.itsmean.com/WWC and fill out a form for online personal training, you will receive 20% off your first month of online personal training. And online personal training with Mean Training is different than your standard cookie cutter program where you're working with someone that maybe is just delivering a PDF program or something that's been crafted for the masses. Online personal training with Mean Training is everything is tailored exactly to you. Everything is built from scratch based on you, your schedule, your equipment accessibility, your goals, injury history, all of that stuff. Angela has been a Mean Training client for almost a year now.
Yes, I can testify. I can. No, seriously. And it reminds me, I need to get back on my workouts.
It's been a busy week.
But it's great. Honestly, like this is what I think everyone should be able to experience at some point in their life. Just having this guidance and support, it makes a huge difference. So yeah, take advantage of this deal, guys.
Very excited for it. So again, that's www.itsmean.com/WWC. Fill out a form and you will get 20% off your first month of online personal training. So today's episode, we are very excited. It is the last episode in this first series. And today what we wanted to be sharing with all of you is a bit more about each pillar that we have kind of prioritized with Wahine Wealth Club. As being a pillar of wealth. And as you guys know, we have our 4 pillars of wealth. We have physical, mental, spiritual, financial, and the culminating result of ikigai. And all of these pillars are what we quantify as wealth for Wahine Wealth Club and that we're excited to share more about with you all today.
Yes. So super excited to dive deeper. First, we're going to kind of break down what is ikigai. It's such a funny word. It's actually Japanese, and it means reason for being. So it's a blend of 2 words. The first part, iki, meaning to live, and gai, meaning reason. And so that translates into, a reason to live, a reason for being. And it's a really beautiful concept that encourages people to discover what truly matters to them and to live a life with purpose. And so, yeah, that is essentially what we're all trying to strive for. And it is attainable. Takes a lot of reflection and, a lot of honesty with yourself, but it is so worth it. And so at the heart of ikigai, it's actually a Venn diagram with like 4 circles overlapping. The first circle is your passion, what you love. The second circle is your vocation, which means what you're good at. Third circle is your mission, what the world needs. And then the last circle is your profession, what you could be paid for. Because unfortunately, in this world, we all need to make money to live and survive.
Yeah, and I think ikigai in itself already really exemplifies the 5 different pillars of wealth that we've talked about, right? So it's like putting all of those things together. That is what creates your ikigai. That's what is going to give you a life that's not only one that can sustain you financially, but also one that you're passionate about, one that gets you out of bed in the morning, one that, you feel purposeful, you feel in alignment with spiritually, mentally, physically, all of those things. So ikigai for us is really kind of that culminating factor of all of those pillars coming together to live a truly wealthy life. So we want to kind of touch on each of the pillars today to be able to share more about why they're important, why we've identified these different components to be quote unquote components of wealth. I think when you think of wealth from the standard perspective, if you were to Google search wealth, definition, it would probably come up with something about money or about finances or about, net worth or something like that. And that is absolutely a component. Finances are 100% a component. That is one of our pillars. But there's a lot of other things that kind of comprise that. And I think the way that I like to think about wealth is I kind of tie it with legacy in my brain. And when I think about what does wealth mean to me, it ties directly with legacy of what do I want to be leaving the world with? What do I want to be at the end of my life feeling like I have imparted to the world, that I can share with the world, that is going to outlive me? Because we're all going to die one day. We all know that. We're human. We have a finite amount of time on this earth. So what is that culmination of that legacy and that wealth that we can leave behind? And I think the way that we arrive there is by being intentional with these different components and aligning them to work together instead of cannibalizing or impacting one another. And I think to kick it off, one that obviously Angela and I are both very passionate about is the physical pillar. That's one that we, obviously prioritize a lot in our lives. Me as a personal trainer and a power lifter, Angela as an athlete, as a champion. There's different ways that we do that. But I think touching first on the physical component of wealth is really important. So I want to hear from you first.
Okay.
What are a few ways that you prioritize physical wealth in your life, both as an athlete when you were competing, when you were fighting, and now retired, living the life that you're currently living?
So, of course, when I was actively fighting, the focus on physicality, being primed and ready for fight night, right? There's weeks and weeks that lead up to that preparation. And it's crazy because you're asking so much of your body. You're literally pushing it to its limits every day. And I got to be honest and share that I was not really taking care of my body, even though I was asking so much of it. The recovery, the nutrition that I was putting into it, the sleep. I was deprived, and I'm very shocked at how well I did and how far I got with the circumstances and like how just like not the right care went into, my body. Like we always say that our bodies are like machines, right? It needs the right kind of fuel. And so essentially in my body, trying to compete at the highest level, like a race car in F1, but not taking care of it, not taking those pit stops needed.
Treating it like a Datsun.
I look back and I'm like, wow, so nowadays where I'm at with my physical health, physical wealth, I really try and prioritize that recovery aspect of things. And then also switching my mindset from moving for competition, like movement for competition compared to movement just for like longevity has been a really big shift that I've needed to kind of like wrap my head around and kind of like view it in this new way. Because before I was very goal oriented. I was like, okay, the fight's going to be, in these many weeks. This is what we're going to build up towards. And then afterwards, I'd just be like in retirement mode, essentially. I'd be like doing nothing. I'd be eating all the junks, like just like, doing everything that I wanted to do when I was in fight camp, eating everything I wanted to do that, so like rewarding myself, right, for the hard work. But that led to a lot of like high weight fluctuations, like yo-yo dieting essentially. And it was just very unhealthy. I don't really talk about this much, but ever since I kind of started fighting, developed like an eating disorder. And I kind of like needed to work through that. Even years after not fighting, and it has a huge effect, I think, just from the fact of like combat sports, you need to make a certain weight requirement, learning those bad habits from such an early age. So trying to like unlearn all of those unhealthy things has been a process.
Yeah.
So just want to emphasize, like, you know, it is possible to be an athlete or competitor at the highest level with the right support and guidance and resources.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think as like a competitor, especially in a sport like fighting, where so much of it is dependent on your weight. It's like make or break. Like that's how you get into the dance, right? Is you have weigh-ins before you can even compete, you can even fight.
Right.
And if you don't make the weigh-ins, it's like, oh my God, I failed, right?
Yeah.
And I think it, especially for, I mean, I know this impacts men as well, but especially for females, where it's like your correlation of worth and value is directly tied to a number on the scale, is very mentally damaging. And I think this is where we start to get into the realm of like physical, mental, how those things all like tie together. They're really not something you can separate. But it is such a, it's like an unspoken thing that I think more people need to talk about how do you be in a sport that, yes, you do need to have weigh-ins. You do need to be able to manage and maintain and make sure you're able to do what you need to for the required sport, like wrestling. For me, I'm a powerlifter. I have weigh-ins as well, you know, but how do you do that in a way where you're not subjecting yourself to things like eating disorders? You're not reverting to like whatever it takes, you know? And especially when you're young, especially when you're like, I think probably the age that you were when you were experiencing like the peak of that, it's so hard because all you're looking at is like, well, this is just what I need to do, but you're not like considering all of the other impacts it's having.
Yeah.
And that is something I think that being able to build those relationships with like still showing up, still being like, I'm still going to compete. I'm still going to be an athlete. I'm still going to pursue this at the highest level, but I'm also going to build these really strong boundaries of like what I will and I won't do, and valuing yourself enough to say like, okay, but I'm prioritizing still myself to make sure I'm not, you know, putting myself at risk. I'm not putting myself in a dangerous place. But that's so much easier said than done. And I get that. And especially for you, like competing at the highest level, like a world champion, the mental pressure of that has to be just insane. Like I can't say like I know what that's like, but I can only imagine what that would feel like in that moment.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you know, a very difficult place to be, and like kind of reliving that and seeing kind of where that started from, right? I mean, if you look at all combat sports and the history of it, and like, you know, the need to make this weight requirement, the weight cutting, the culture of it, even in high school wrestling, you know, that's kind of where everyone gets exposed to cutting weight. And nobody is there to show these young athletes, these young, you know, fighters, the right way to do this. And they're like 14, 15 years old. They're still kind of like growing and developing. And then the lasting impacts that this has on your body. You know, I know like many female fighters as well, they don't realize it at the time, but you know, you're really doing damage internally.
Yeah.
And I mean, if not physically, like mentally as well. Like for me, like being able to kind of like stop myself from the bad habits I used to do. I mean, when I was pregnant with Ava, like you have morning sickness, you have nausea, and like that kind of triggered my old responses of like throwing up and like, and I was like, I need to stop that, because like I knew that was like not the right thing to do, but I was like trying so hard to keep it down because I'm like, baby needs nutrients. I'm like, don't throw up this meal that you just ate. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like thinking that these things that I'm doing now, it's not just affecting me, it's affecting, you know, those around me, baby inside of me. So yeah, you know, it's just something for people to think about. And it's crazy. Some people don't even think that, you know, that the physical health and mental health is related. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's impossible to disconnect
Yeah.
them.
I mean, like, if you don't eat, you're
You
hangry.
don't think clearly.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
head's foggy. It's like
Yeah.
if you don't sleep, like how does that affect your mood? How does that affect,
Totally.
And so it can show up in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Which I guess segues into the mental aspect of things.
Yeah, 100%. I think with the correlation between the physical and the mental, for me, that's really ultimately why I got so into training, why I like started pursuing it so much, I guess, after graduating from college and coming back home. And my background was always in like dancing and cheerleading. So that's like what I was doing for, through college. I was on a dance team. I was doing like all these different things when I was in California. And then I moved back here and I just had this sense of just like, I don't have like a thing, like just feeling like I didn't have a dance team anymore. I didn't have like an outlet. I didn't feel like I like knew what my thing was. And I just felt like I needed something to like put that energy into. Not just physically, but also mentally. I was just like, I need like to feel like I kind of belong or like, like I have a thing that's for me. And that was when I really got into weight training and into like lifting and that kind of stuff. And I remember being so afraid of starting to lift because I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to like get super big and bulky and like going to look masculine and like, all the things that like, it's so funny now thinking about it because when I hear girls say that now when I work with them, I just want to be like, please don't tell yourself that. Like, it's just not true. And it's so much harder to get big than people think it is. I'm like, do you know how much food these bodybuilders are eating and like what kind of workouts? I'm like, it's not just going to accidentally happen. You don't just like become the Hulk overnight, like accidentally. But that was me. That was literally me, and I had this like stigma in my head of like what was going to happen. And it was like, I was just like, but I like it. I enjoy it. It's something that makes me feel good. It's something that makes me feel strong and makes me feel like accomplished and like proves to myself I can do hard things. And that butterfly effect of falling in love with that and how that impacted the rest of my life was insane. It was something I think I never started it for that, but I think that's the reason I stuck with it is because of how much I could see it impacting the rest of my life, where it's like, we used to get up and go to the gym in the morning before I would go to my office job. And I was like, I got up at 4 a.m. and I did a really hard workout before I even got to the office. So like everything else that follows after that is going to be gravy. It's going to be easy because I already did something really hard that I chose to do. And for me, that's really where that kind of has like pushed me forward with, outside of just like training casually now, it's like with powerlifting, with being a competitive athlete in that, with like, I'm prepping for nationals right now in the summer. And like, that's really hard to be doing on top of all of the other things we're doing. But to me, it's that mental victory of saying like, I am making myself do this. No one is making me do this. Like, this is not like something like someone's like holding over my head of like, you have to get this done. It's like, no, I'm choosing to do this because aside from feeling really good and feeling strong and feeling like I'm capable of doing it in my body, it's like mentally for myself to be able to say like, I can do all of these things and I can also be pushing myself as an athlete. That's like really what keeps me going with it. Because if it was just waking up and looking in the mirror and being like, how do I look today?
That's me flexing every morning.
Gonna put the picture of you just flexing in the photo shoot. But yeah, if that's like all it is, that's still not a bad thing by any means. I think everyone deserves to feel good in their skin. But I think for me, that's really what keeps me going with it, is like that melding of the physical and the mental. And that's really ultimately what I also try to share with my clients too, is like, you can't just look at it from getting on the scale every morning and being like, oh my God, like I'm 0.5 pounds heavier than I was yesterday.
Oh, I remember those days.
And it's just like, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Like you're just going to go nuts. You're going to hate the process. You're going to probably get discouraged and you're probably going to quit. And I think that's why so many people quit.
Yeah.
Versus if you're performance focused, if you are balanced in your approach of saying like, I want to be able to do this because this is important to me. Like going back to your why, right? Like why you train now. It's longevity, is you want to show up for your daughter. You want to be able to go run around in the park with her in 15 years and not feel like you're going to like bust the hip or something. You know what I mean? Like it's like those kind of things, and it's like performance. So it's like, okay, what do you need to do to train to be that person versus saying like, I just want to lose like 5 pounds and like look good for summer, which again, that's not a bad goal. But if that's your only goal, it's going to be a lot harder to stick with if you unless you have like a really strong underlying why for all of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Hearing you talking about powerlifting and how like it's your outlet. And I really want to just commend you for being, an active, competitive athlete, because I know how much that takes, along with everything else you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's like, I mean, it's tough, for everyone out there who has put themselves on the line, like we know, right? But yeah, no, I think that moving your body, getting outside is like so important. I mean, of course, for the physicality of things, but like mentally what that does for you, like, right? Like everyone gets that high after, doing a workout, after doing that run. And, it's literally like your body needs that, like some kind of form of movement, daily, whether it's taking the stairs instead of the elevator or, and yeah. So, I mean, just saying like one thing that I've been working on for like my mental health is getting outside first thing in the morning and like getting sunlight. And it sounds like very funny and silly, right? It's like, oh, go outside and get some sun, but it really does have like an instant effect. Like I feel great. Like I love feeling the warmth of the sun. I'm in a better mood instead of like staying in bed on my phone scrolling first thing in the morning. Right. 100%. It's like getting outside and like taking off your shoes, like getting in the grass, getting a stretch in. And I'm trying to do that more often. Even with Ava, instead of like, first thing in the morning, I'm making breakfast and she's like on her tablet watching a show. I'll be like, let's go outside and have a picnic, And it's a huge difference, I can tell, in the way that she handles the rest of the day too.
Totally. It's like the most basic level stuff, right? Of like, we all know that we need those things, but the environment that we live in now is just not set up for that. Unfortunately, the environment we live in is set up for productivity. It's set up for work. It's set up for efficiency. But it's not a priority to do those things. And I think we're really starting to see the effects of that. I mean, for me personally, again, as a trainer and a coach, I'm working with people all day, every day that are dealing with chronic pain, that are dealing with, migraines, that are dealing with insomnia, just anxiety, just like crippling anxiety that they just can't seem to get hold of. And it feels like it's a lot of big things, but it's really a lot of the small things.
Yeah.
It feels like, I think the number one thing that I see is hard is that people are trying to change their entire life at the same time. And they're like, well, I'm not going to eat at any more restaurants. I'm going to make sure I'm getting 10,000 steps. I'm going to do 5 really hard workouts every week. I'm going to be getting in the sauna and the cold plunge and blah, 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 blah. And all of these like massive life changes. And they try to do them all at once. And then they're like, this is so hard. And it's like, yeah, it's because you're doing a lot of stuff all at once.
Right.
Versus if you really step back and you're just like, okay, what are the small little bite-sized things that I can implement, but that are actually the big rocks of change. And Ricky and I talk about this a lot, my husband. We talk about this a lot as far as what are the big rocks of change in your fitness and in just your life in general, you know? And it really does boil down to just, like you said, like movement. It doesn't need to be a crazy, you don't need to go do like a CrossFit insane workout. You can just increase the amount of movement you're getting in your day through walks. Just getting outside and just like taking a lap around your office building, you know, once or twice a day. Go during your lunch break. Just before you eat your lunch, just go take a lap around your building.
Yep.
Do walking meetings. Like if you have a meeting scheduled, like put your AirPods in and just go like walk back and forth outside. It's like super simple stuff. It doesn't need to be complicated. Like if you're going to go to the grocery store, just park a row away from where you would usually park and get a few extra steps in. You know, like you said, like just maybe you don't say like, I'm not going to look at my phone for the first hour of the day. Maybe it's just 5 minutes. Just start with 5 minutes. I'm going to go with not picking up my phone. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to get up 5 minutes this morning. I'm going to like be like really intentional with just not picking it up. And then the next day you're like, okay, I did 5 minutes yesterday. Maybe today I try 6, you know? And I think it's like those little things, those are like micro victories that stack and that compound over time. It's like investing. You put in $2 every day and then compounding interest carries that. And 10 years from now, that's like tenfold, you know?
For sure.
And so I really like agree with you on that, especially when it comes to living a busy life, which we all have busy lives. Like I don't know anyone, I'm a quote unquote fitness professional and I'm like, I don't have as much time as I would like to do some of those things, but you got to figure out the little things you can do.
No, for sure. Like I agree, like setting yourself up for success versus failure, like trying to do too much versus choosing like 1 or 2 things you can change that you can stick to. And then you'll feel good about that. Like you accomplished that, you did that, you know, instead of like, oh, I didn't get to A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think like for you, obviously with Fight Story being your nonprofit that raises awareness for mental health in the combat sports arena, I think that's a really beautiful tie into both the mental and the physical, of course. What are some things for you that like, again, like going back to who you are today versus who you are as a fighter, what has been the biggest mental shift for you that has really helped you to prioritize your mental health, but also to be a positive impact and voice for others?
To be honest, and I don't know about you, I want to hear your perspective after, but the whole time I was fighting, I did not have a clue or understanding about mental health and like exactly what that entailed. I just always thought like mental health or, you know, meant being mentally strong or mental toughness. And I think we can both agree that is a huge aspect of it, of having that grit and resilience and toughness. But then the other side of things too, that vulnerability, that honest conversation that we need to have, not just with ourselves, but with others, of like letting people in, letting your guard down. And that just is so opposite of what you're taught as a fighter growing up. You know, be strong, be tough, show no weakness. And so it's very like, they're like opposite sides of the spectrum, right? How do you be this one thing, but also do this too? And so for me, like since retiring, I really learned a lot more of how everyone is affected by mental health. We all have brains. And so, you know, mental health is something that we all have, is something we should all prioritize. And it's not necessarily saying that, you know, there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. And some people don't know that out there too. And that I think the number one thing for me was really that community aspect of finding the right people of who I could open up to that really gave me the support that I needed. And that's hard because, you know, sometimes, you know, we take that leap of faith and we put ourselves out there and we try and talk about our feelings and then we get shut down.
Yeah.
And then we're like, I'm never going to talk about that again.
Or even worse, you have someone that has bad motives and uses it against you.
Right. And then, I just don't want people to let that deter them from trying to open up again, because we're humans. It's naturally ingrained in us to have that search and feeling for connection towards one another. But finding the right people who have that capacity to really hear you, really be able to be there for you, because some people don't have that.
Yes.
And learning to see that and accept that everyone is different, but I'm not going to have that conversation with you or that person here. I'm going to maybe search for that with someone else over there. And so it's hard. It can be frustrating at times, but when you do find those people, it makes everything just so much better. And I'm like, wow, I have this tribe of people who I can rely on, who I can open up to, who understand me, and who I can be there for them as well.
Yeah.
That two sides of wanting to be there for everyone, but not allowing yourself, when others want to be like, hey, how are you doing? I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Not letting them in. So yeah, it's and it's a work in progress, but that's been the biggest difference and biggest shift for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think relate to you on that. It's something that I've actually thought a lot about is, everyone tells you you can't be closed off, you can't be avoiding how you're feeling, you have to be honest with people. And I think, yes, that is 100% true to some degree. But I think what you're saying about you have to be selective who those people are. You have to vet them. It can't just be everybody. And something that I think about, especially with those really hard moments, is not everyone deserves that part of you, because that's a very special, very vulnerable part that everyone has inside of them. And not everyone deserves that. Not everyone has earned the right to share that with you. It's really those people, like you said, your tribe, those people that have proven and shown up, and that you feel like, I know you're going to be able to handle this, and I know that you're going to be able to support me through this the same way I would support you through what you're going through. And it is that really beautiful reciprocal relationship where you have respect first and foremost for each other, and you have that both underlying value of, I'm going to do whatever I think is best for you because I have your best interest in mind. And that takes time. That's not something you just come across. That's not just something you share with your followers on Instagram, or you just talk with a random person about. It's those are people that sometimes take years to find. And I mean, I think you and I have shared this experience too of it took a while to find those people.
Yeah.
They don't just happen. They don't just come up. You have to be intentional. You have to build those relationships, and you have to seek out that type of person intentionally.
Yes.
And then when you find them, you have to nurture that relationship. It's like a romantic relationship. You don't just show up and expect, you also show up and give. And I think that's really something I very much can, I very much align with you on. I very much can relate to you on, because I think that's a huge part when you do go through those hard times.
Right.
You have to put in the work to cultivate that
Yes.
circle around you.
That's so true. I can really testify to this too. I mean, what you were saying, how not many people get access to that side of you. I'm a very open person. I kind of overly trusting, right? And I've gotten hurt so many times from doing that, and it sucks, but it's a learning experience, and it showed me, okay, what not to look for in a friend, or what kind of people I can't open up to. And it made it even more clear of the type of people I want to search for and find. And like you were saying, these people don't magically show up. You have to be, everything has to be aligned. You have to kind of be in the right environments and like people with maybe similar experiences, because, you know, sometimes it's unfortunate, but like everyone goes through different experiences. Someone who has experienced something maybe has no clue or doesn't even know what that's like. They can't comprehend it because they haven't lived it themselves. So someone who's gone through something similar with you, you guys can connect. So that's also somewhere to start if, you know, for the listeners out there who's wondering, where can I find my tribe? How can I,
Yeah.
you know, cultivate these relationships?
Yeah. I also would add to that, it starts with you. I think if you don't know who you are as a person yet, and I think, again, this is like me talking to Hannah fresh out of college. I didn't know who I was. I felt so lost. I felt so trying to figure out like who that person was, because that was going to inform the type of people I hung out with. And there was like a season of life where it's like you're just like hopping around from friend group to friend group trying to like figure out like, where do I fit in? Who are the people that I want to be surrounding myself with? And it really wasn't until like I stopped like looking externally and stopped looking at everyone else around me, and I started looking internally and doing the really hard work of like, who am I? Like, what is that? Like, who do I even want to be? Because that's going to inform the kind of people that I spend my time with, right? It's like the old saying of like, I'm going to butcher this, but like, you're like the 5 people that are around you. Like, you're like a culmination of those people. And it's like, okay, if I'm like, who am I going to show up for as these people? If I'm like one of their 5 friends, or like, what kind of value am I adding to their life? You know? And it really starts with that look internally of like, okay, who am I? What am I about? What are my values? What are non-negotiables for me in what I'm willing to accept and not accept as far as friendships and values and relationships and just all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where you have to start if you are in that place where you're like trying to find your tribe, is you got to start with yourself. You got to really do the work of saying, okay, I got to get really uncomfortable for a minute here and figure out who the heck I am. And then you'll automatically start attracting those people to you, because now you're going to be putting out exactly who you are. And that's going to bring the right people to you.
100%. And we can kind of talk more about that with ikigai later on, doing all of those like self-reflection. But I guess we can segue into the next pillar, which is spiritual wealth. To be honest, this is something that has been kind of new for me. Just kind of like navigating. For me, growing up in my family, my mom was Christian, but in my dad's side of the family, there was a lot of, you know, Buddhism, a lot of people with different kind of religions and beliefs. So for me, I'm not really tied to a specific religion, I would say. But I would say that I am spiritual. And I think there's a difference between the two. I do believe in God, in a higher calling, in the way things are meant to be in this world and how the way things work. You know, I call like and talk to my like angels all the time. But it's a bit tricky for me. And I don't know if any of you guys out there feel the same way that I do. Kind of feel like I don't fit in a specific category of like, you know, religion or faith or spirituality. But I just have always been a firm believer of like, everyone has a purpose on this earth, and it's our goal in life to find that purpose. And it is a culmination of everything ikigai, of like what we're supposed to leave this earth or this world better than we found it. What can we contribute? How can we, you know, how can we live life to the fullest, but also give back? And for me, like, I feel very aligned with where I'm at now, with what I'm doing. And I just always like, I kind of like talk and kind of like ask for guidance and like ask for wisdom, because if they're out there, I could use the help, you know? And so for me, like, just being completely honest and transparent with everyone, right? Like that's kind of where I'm standing with like the spiritual wealth, regarding our pillars.
Yeah. I think it's one, like, first I want to just say, like, I really appreciate you, like, being honest about that, because I think it is like something that a lot of people are really struggling with, that like sense of like, what is this all even here for? Like, why am I here? I think, and that again ties right back in with the mental. It's like that deeper sense of purpose, that deeper sense of like, did I just happen? Was I just like an accident? Was all of this just an accident? And I think there's so many people that are struggling with that, and that leads into that sense of like anxiety and depression of just like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And it really, like, if you think too long about it, like, it can kind of spin you out, if you don't have that sense of foundation of like something that you're rooted in, something that you're grasping into. And I would just encourage you to like continue exploring that, because I really do think that's like God pulling on your heart, of like him trying to like pull you to him. But everyone has to go through that experience on their own. And I think that's something for me growing up in the church, growing up very sheltered, going to a Christian school, Christian university. I really felt like I was being told for a long time what I needed to believe, and I was being graded on it. I was being like, it was being like analyzed, and like we would do Bible journals in high school, and I would literally get a grade for it, when it's like supposed to be like a personal journal of like scripture and stuff like that. And so I think for me that really damaged my faith for a long time. And there was like a season of having to like unravel that and figure out like why that was so hurtful, and like really like looking at it. And I think ultimately I came to the conclusion as an adult, as someone that's not in that position anymore, I still have faith. I still believe. I'm a Christian. I still like very much believe that that is the truth, but I don't want to ever put that pressure on someone else to say, this is what you need to believe and how you need to believe it. Because I just think that's so damaging. And I think that's why so many people have issues with the church today, is because they've had an experience like that, where someone approached them from like a legalistic, really like just not loving approach and perspective of like telling them, no, like, this is why you're wrong, and
Right.
This is why you need to believe this. And if you like, read the Bible, which I've been trying to do more of just myself, is just like really getting into reading and understanding my faith as an adult now. That's not at all how Jesus operated. That's not at all how he approached people. He never like shoved it down their throats. He always did it through actions, and he a lot of times like pissed off the church. He pissed off like the elders of the church, because he wasn't doing it the way that they wanted him to do it. And that was his whole ministry, And so I think for me, being a Christian now, as an adult, and really like stepping away and trying to like approach it from a personal perspective, that's really where I've come to understand is like the most wealthy thing I can do for my spirituality is to understand what I believe and to be in it, and then to be able to share that with other people through my actions, through how I show up for them, how I speak to people, how I love people. Because at the end of the day, like, everyone has to come to that conclusion themselves. Like, I think the way that you're processing those things, the way that you're trying to kind of, same thing, analyze what exactly do I believe, what exactly do I feel is the truth, and then taking that forward and letting that be something that's personal to you, versus me telling you, hey, you should stop doing this because this is what I think, That doesn't help anybody. That doesn't bring anyone closer to wanting to learn more, to explore more. It just closes them off even more.
Yeah. No, like for sure. And I think like for me, being exposed to like so many different cultures around the world too, and everyone having, coming from a different background, a different upbringing, and having respect for that first and foremost. And for me, like, I guess the most important thing that I view for like is kind of, are you a good person? Are you doing good things? Like, I truly believe that, you know, right, actions and words, right, they need to align. And I think that going even deeper into it, like having something greater to believe in than yourself, or greater to believe in than, you know, this world, or like the higher purpose of like what this is all even about.
Mm-hmm.
That search is very individual.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I guess like this is the whole purpose of life, is to go through that journey and like
Mm-hmm.
live, experience like heartbreak and failure, but also like love and like extreme amounts of joy. And like that's really like this whole process, I feel like,
Yeah.
you know, what life is about.
Yeah. One of my favorite books is called A Man's Search for Meaning, and it's by Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor. And he like details his time through the internment camps and just like the awful things that happened. And the entire book is about a man's search for meaning. And he has so many like insights into that, and insights into like the psychology of the people in those camps, and like the people that like came out of it and how they like survived and how they got through that. And he has this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. I have it on a sticky note on my computer that says, "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how." And that's really like the emphasis of these people went through the worst of the worst. Like they, in like all, you know, standards of the word, they went through hell. Like there's no reason those people should be able to come out on the other side of it, but they did. And why is that? And it really circles back to that why that people were living for, you know, whether that was to see family again, whether that was to take care of their other inmates in the camps, whether that was to be able to tell the story. And I really think that that's what a lot of people are missing, is like that deeper why. And I think that does tie in very deeply with spirituality. And again, butterflies into mental. If you don't have that why, life's going to be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my why is I feel like God has put me on this earth for a purpose. And I think that there is a reason he's put me in certain circumstances that he hasn't put other people in. And I'm like, I feel that that's my why. And that makes the times when it is really hard, when there is a lot of stuff going on, it still gives me the desire and the strength to be able to show up and to do those things, because it's deeper than just myself and how I'm feeling. Highly recommend that book, by the way.
Yeah,
I think you would love it.
I will definitely check it out.
I'll lend it to you. I have it at home. Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
great.
I have like 3 books I'm trying to finish at the same time right now. It's gonna be next in line.
Audiobooks, man. Audiobooks are great. I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Alrighty, so are we moving on to maybe financial?
I think so. I think
wealth.
I think that's one that we'll definitely have some good conversations about. And I guess from a financial perspective, you know, it's interesting because you being a professional athlete, I think people look at that and they're like, oh, you're just like rolling in the dough. You're like, you know, have more money than you know what to do with. You're set for the rest of your life. I think truly before I got to know you, that was kind of the perspective I had for like, you know, a professional fighter, someone that's like reached the top of their level. I was like, yeah, I mean, they're probably like can do whatever they want. They just have excess income.
Yeah.
But the more I've like gotten to know you, the more I've spoken with you, the more like I've been able to like really like understand how the industry works and how those things like happen. The more I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like you put your body through all of these things. You like, you know, were like basically owned by the sport for so many years, and then it's not that.
Yeah.
Could you just share a little bit about for you, I guess first, like what that is, was that something that you thought before you like got into fighting? And 2, what has your perspective been since retiring on the financial component?
To be honest, I never started fighting to make money.
Mm.
Um, it was never really like a thought in my mind like, hey, I'm gonna do this because I want to get rich, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I really did it, and I started out doing it because I loved it. I thought I was good at it, and it was kind of everything I knew.
Mm.
And I wanted to travel the world too. So, because through fighting, you travel to, fight in many different countries and able
Sure.
to do that. So for me, that was like what was rich about it was
Yeah.
that cultural experience.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, like getting to the highest level, becoming champion, staying champion, that did come with many benefits that I didn't have to worry about bills or finances or like those kinds of things for a while,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of made me kind of like naive or like a false like impression of what the world actually is, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I was never like a very super frivolous spender. I would spend on things like travel, like food, like experiences. But needing to actually take a step back and like account for everything and like learning how to manage money, learning how to invest.
Mm-hmm.
I never had that.
Yeah.
And I really wish I did. I really wish I had some kind of like, nest egg when I retired, and that, that could set me up for whatever next adventure that I'd be on, whatever, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I retired, and this was like in 2023, I knew in my heart this was the right decision. But of course, I was scared because I'd be going from having all of this income being taken care of for all these years to like nothing, like cut off, dry. Like I didn't have anything else lined up. I was literally starting a nonprofit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was just very naive, but I'm like, in my heart, I'm like, I'm gonna do good work and I'll be taken care of. And it sounds like funny, but it's, of course, unrealistic
Mm.
with the world, with living in Hawaii and how expensive it is here. I've really had to take a step back. And, thankfully, my husband and I, we have also a gym, United BJJ, here in Oahu, which has helped to kind of take care of us in, since retirement. But, living in Hawaii, we all need 2-3 streams of income
Yep.
to survive.
Yep.
It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts of moving out of Hawaii did occur because we're like, how are we gonna do this? And it's like, to get by, we need to make more. How are you gonna do that? Well, I can't just work a 9 to 5. It's like, it doesn't really. I wanted to do something purposeful with my life, and I knew I had a lot I wanted to offer, a lot of unique experiences and perspectives, right? And I'm like, how do I make money from that? Like, I'm a fighter. All I know how to do is to fight. Like, how am I going to make money if I'm not fighting? And so literally, like, I had thoughts going back to fighting, but it would just be for the money. And I'm like,
can't do that.
can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not the right choice.
Tale as
So
old as time, though, with fighters. So you can tell where they're like, they take a fight and you're like, you shouldn't be fighting. And you know
Yeah.
it's just for the money.
Exactly. I didn't want to be that person, right? But it's hard. Sometimes we're like left with no choice because we didn't build any other skills. Like, I didn't think at the time, I was like, I don't think I have any other skills set, whatever. I don't think I'm qualified for anything else. Like, what can I do? And it's crazy. Like, I mean, especially with combat sports, like just speaking on the financial side of things, what people don't realize, even though we're called professionals just means getting paid. We're like literally the lowest level of like paid athletes out there. It's like the only sport or profession that like you get paid a certain amount to show up and a certain amount to win. So your earnings significantly relies on your performance. And like many fighters out there cannot be a full-time fighter. They need to actually work other jobs to try and support their dream of trying to become a champion and a fighter. So yeah, it's like the reality side of things. I wouldn't say it's all bad. Of course, like I do not regret my time being a fighter. It was amazing. I just wish that I was more prepared and I had more guidance of what happens after that.
Yeah, totally. I think financial literacy is something that we just do a bad job of in general. Like even outside of the fight world,
In schools.
in school,
Yeah.
in like upbringing, like I mean, you learn about the Pythagorean theorem in school and then you don't know how to like pay your taxes. It's like
Yep.
it's like, oh, thanks. That was super helpful. Like I can do geometry, but I don't know what I should be putting aside for paying my taxes, like all of those things. It's crazy. And yeah, I can totally relate to you on just feeling like a little bit naive. I think especially coming from Hawaii. It's a great place to live. Love living here. Wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And that's the reason why we're fighting so hard to stay here. It's a hard place to live.
Yeah.
For anyone that's listening that lives elsewhere, I know that it's also hard to live in a lot of places right now. I don't want to just say it's like just a Hawaii specific thing because I know it's not. I know that cost of living everywhere is on the rise. I know that rents are on the rise. I know that groceries are insane. So I know it's not a Hawaii specific thing. It just feels like sometimes it's just like, it just feels like you're getting like your knees like knocked out from under you. You just like, I'm like making progress. We're doing good. And then it's just like, boom, like taxes or boom, whatever, it just comes in and hits you. And you're just like, oh my God, like I'm trying to do things the right way. I'm trying to run a business the right way. I'm trying to do all of these things. And so it can be extremely frustrating. So I totally can relate to you on that. I think for me, the reason I chose to go to business school and to get my degree in business was honestly for that reason, was because I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. But I was like, at least I know a business degree will teach me like fundamentals of how to get around in the world, how to like do things, how to like, have tangible skills that I can use in whatever capacity I'm working in. And obviously that has been very helpful running my own business now.
I should have finished mine. I literally did 2 semesters in college, like trying to get, follow business too, because I didn't know what I was going to do. But then I dropped out. And
it's never too late. It's never too late. You can always restart it. But yeah, it's like, it's one of those things though, for sure, that like, even with going to school for business, some days I'm still just like trying to figure it out, and I think we all are to some degree. One thing I will say with like personal financial management is something that my husband Ricky and I have been trying to really, really prioritize, I'd say in the last 6 months, is just really being principled about money, in the sense of, I think for a long time you think like, oh, like if I have more money, that's going to fix my money problems. But that's not the case, because the way you spend $1,000 is the way you're going to spend $10,000, right? It comes back to your principles about money and about the structures you set in place to be able to say like, I can still set aside X amount for savings, for investing. I have to taper my expenses to match that. I have to work within a budget. I have to look at like, what are the things that we have going on right now that we can scale back on? How do we increase the income level through the business, through the things that we're doing? Prioritizing the correlation of like your time with your money, like what's more important to you right now, And so I think like that is something that we've been really a lot more strict on with our own like just personal finances, which I've seen a tremendous benefit from.
I need to get in on those conversations with you guys.
Yeah, I think it's simple stuff too. It's like going back to the fitness conversation of people try to change everything overnight. It's like, you don't need to do that. You just need to you need to look at things and lay it all out and say, okay, like, where do we start? What's going to be the biggest rock of change? What's going to be the thing that's going to make the biggest impact? And how do we like sustain that? And then, okay, we got that under control. So now how do we move on to the next one, you know? And you pick up the big stones before you pick up the pebbles, and then you are able to compound that. Yeah. But for us, it really just came down to being honest with each other of just like, what is our goal? Like, what is our financial goal for ourselves personally, for the business? What are the things we need to do to get there? And then you work backwards. And that has really like transformed, I think, for us, just the way we think about money too.
Yeah.
Something else that has been really top of mind that I've been saying a lot to Ricky is money is everywhere. I think we have this idea of like a scarcity mindset of there's like a shortage of money in the world. The truth is there's literally no shortage of money. Money is like, if we're in a pool, it'd be the water. We're swimming in it. It's all around us. It's just figuring out how to manage it, and it's figuring out what are those sources and how do you leverage them. But I think it's really getting out of that scarcity mindset and really looking at it from the perspective of like, how do I bring value to increase that in my life and in my business?
Yeah.
And recognizing that there is no shortage of money. You just have to learn how to tap into it and how to find it.
Right.
And that's really changed my personal perspective on it, because I think for a long time I grew up with local family. Bills are always tight. It's always like you have this mentality of like, oh, like there's just not enough money to go around. And changing that perspective has really, really helped a lot, I think.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Myself, and as a business owner, and then maybe for all of the students out there who are going through college, how do you guys view and deal with debt and like that big hovering cloud over your head, and like how it can really affect you? But like, is there any tips or like ways to really like deal with that in a healthy way, and how to chip away at it, or whatever you could share?
That's, I think, a really good question. And I think it is something that a lot of people silently struggle with, is like the stress of that. I am in no way, shape, or form a financial expert. So I just want to preface by saying that we do plan to have some financial experts on the podcast.
Which we can't wait to answer that question about.
But I will share, I guess, just my personal viewpoint on that, and on like how I've approached that myself. Debt is one of those things that I look at kind of similar to social media. Gets a really bad rap. A lot of people have a stigma around it, but at the end of the day, it's actually a tool that you can use and leverage dependent on how you use it. So what I mean by that is I think debt becomes a problem when it's something that you are using to buy more liabilities. You're not using to buy assets. And it comes back to the idea of being able to generate cash flow. So if you're maxing out your credit card, buying Louis Vuitton bags and Rolex watches, you're using your debt to buy liabilities. Those aren't assets. Those are things that aren't going to build you any money. But if you're using debt to leverage to buy a business, and then that business can make you money, now you're using debt in your favor. So there's ways to use debt, but you have to understand what the intent and the purpose of it is. And you also have to do a good analysis of what is the risk ratio here? Like what is the best and the worst outcome of this debt, right? And I think for a lot of people, especially in the business world, if you're able to learn how to use debt to your advantage, it can really push you forward. It's just the problem is, I think people have a poor understanding of what debt is. And they also use it for those like short-term, quick fix, like liabilities that ultimately are just going to dig you deeper in the hole. So that's like, I guess from like a macro level, how I would say you need to change your perspective on what is an asset, what is a liability, and how are you going to leverage your assets to make you more money in the future. And the other side of that is if you're already in debt, let's say you're already in debt for whatever, who knows what it is, school, car, house, like you have different debts. Maybe you just, have a lot of spending, whatever those debts are. You want to try and look at whatever is going to give you, again, the biggest rock of change. So what's your highest interest rate? Pay that off first. Mm-hmm. What's the thing that's like that compounding interest is killing you? Usually it's a credit card, right? It's like that's going to have the highest interest rate. So it's like, okay, let's tackle that one first because that's going to be the biggest rock of change. Once we've got that under control, then we move on to the next thing and the next thing. And in the meantime, you're also figuring out how to manage your spending to make sure you're not just buying more liabilities that's just pushing you deeper and deeper and deeper. Mm-hmm. You're able to use those assets that you've been pushing into to accrue more cash flow to be able to get yourself out of that debt faster. Mm-hmm. I think school is super important. I think college is super important. I also don't think everyone needs to go. That's like my 2 cents. I went to college, but I think that there's so many avenues now and there's so many ways you can be successful without feeling like I have to put myself into debt to do this. Mm-hmm. If you feel like that's the only reason you're doing it, then I would say explore other options because there's always alternative routes. Like it's going to be a little bit clunkier. It's going to be a little bit harder because the path isn't going to be so straightforward of like graduated with the degree. Now I go get the job. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's not even what you want. Maybe you want to do something on your own.
Yep.
And I think that is the beauty of the time that we live in is like you can do so much just independently. You just got to have the grit to be able to do it and figure it out.
Yes. The guts and the grit for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't wait to bring more people on board in the next season to kind of dive deeper and talk more about each of these topics. But I guess now we can kind of go into ikigai and, essentially kind of share what that means for both of us. It is how Wahine Wealth Club came to be.
Yeah.
Would you like to go first?
Yeah, you and I have talked a lot about ikigai. And we also made a shirt, Mean Training, my personal training company. We made a shirt.
You guys gotta get it.
That is an ikigai shirt. And it has a lotus on the front that symbolizes rebirth and renewal. And on the back, it talks a little bit about like what the literal translation means, what the idea of ikigai means. For me, ikigai just means living a life of purpose. And purpose doesn't equate with happiness every day because happiness is an emotion. So I don't wake up happy every day. I don't have like the best day every day, but there is purpose in each day. And I think ultimately that is really, when I think about all of these different things, that's like kind of the common thread through all of these different pillars, right? Is like purpose, because the purpose is like where we're trying to go. And then all of these different pillars are different avenues of how we're getting there. Purposeful training for your physical wealth, purposeful intentionality for, strengthening your mental health, being purposeful in your life with spirituality, and then being purposeful in your spending for financial. I think all of those things really come together with ikigai. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's like a very deep connection there between ikigai and spirit and a gut instinct of knowing when you're really living in your purpose. I think we all have our gut instinct. That's something that every human being has, where you just like have that sense of like that feeling. Mm-hmm. Ricky likes to say, feel it in your pico, of like, you just like, it's just like, you just kind of know. Mm-hmm. And I really think that's ultimately for me what ikigai means is like, if I'm feeling like I'm in alignment with all of those things together, then everything else is okay. The rest is out of my control. But if I know I've like checked all those boxes, then I'm living in my true purpose. And for you, like, I want to hear more about, as your life has changed pretty drastically over the last several years, like your pretty much your entire life has kind of like changed, right? Like you're not the same person you were in 2022. You retired in 2023 and now here you are today, doing all of the different things that you're doing. How did finding your ikigai, how did you go through that process? Like how was that? Because I think it's important for a lot of people that maybe are feeling they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you? Like, where did you start? And then what was helpful for you along the way in finding your ikigai?
For me, honestly, it started here with like following my heart. And that has actually helped me in so many instances. Yeah, it sounds very cliche and like follow your heart, but it is true because I think that following your heart, trusting your gut, one and the same. It's crazy because I think along the way, once you start having this feeling and then it becomes a thought and then you start kind of looking for things that kind of match those feelings and thoughts, and then it kind of just leads you closer and closer into the direction of where you want to be going. And like if something is meant for you, I really think that there will be signs along the way that show you it's for you or show you it's not for you. And so I'm a really big believer in like looking out for those signs. Because if you kind of go about life and you kind of like, tunnel vision, you don't have that kind of awareness, it's going to be hard to look out for those signs.
Yeah.
You're going to miss it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, I kind of take a step back and I pause and I think like I really do a lot of reflection with it. And I think that comes back to that inner work of like, okay, who am I? Who do I want to be? How am I going to get there? Making a plan for yourself. And so it's like attainable steps and actions that you can take.
Yeah.
And then, looking out for those little signs along the way, if it's meant for you, or maybe it just leads you into a different direction and you were supposed to go here, hit a wall, but you found something better instead. And just like navigating that journey, that's really been me for the last few years.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm really, really just couldn't be more grateful that every day I get to wake up with a purpose, with intention, with knowing what I'm going to be doing that brings me joy, that also helps other people. And that's literally that's something I'm so proud of. When Ava says, "Mommy, what do you do for work?" And I tell her I help people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that what ikigai is all about, right? I think that I really want to encourage, I guess, all of our listeners who's tuning in, the viewers, to do that self-reflection and exploration of who are you? Who do you want to be? And how can we take the steps to get there? Make yourself a little Venn diagram. It took me so long to really fill in those bubbles. Or like, when you're like, write a short bio about yourself. Like, what would you put in there?
Yeah.
What's your ideal bio of who you want to be?
Yeah.
You have all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's cool too to think about it like when you write like your quote unquote bio of yourself, it's like it doesn't need to be a title. It can literally just be like what are you about? Like what values do you have? What like gives you that like sensation of like passion and excitement? Like what kind of work do you love to do? What kind of people do you like to be around? Where do you like to live? All of those things. Because I think sometimes we can get so in our head of like not knowing where to start. And it's like just start there. Just start with the things that you know to be true about yourself. And that is naturally going to take form and is going to shape, and you're going to start picking up on things. Like you said, like you're going to start to see things throughout your days, throughout your weeks. You're going to be like, oh, maybe I could do something there. Or maybe there's an opportunity in this, or, building that ability to open yourself up to those things. And kind of like similar to how when you're building your tribe of people, it makes you a magnet to those opportunities to those things because you're looking for them. You're putting yourself out there.
Yes.
And you're positioning yourself in the same way that you want to bring those things in. And I really think that's like the ultimate culmination of wealth, because that's when you're really starting to put all of these things together and seeing them come to fruition.
100%. Yeah. And like, don't be afraid to speak it out.
Yeah.
You know, because someone will hear it. Maybe someone resonates with it. Maybe someone gives you a new perspective on it. And that can be kind of the scariest part. Like, we get so in our heads and like, we're like, I don't want to share this with anyone. Like, I'm not sure about it.
If you never shared your Wealth Club idea with me, we wouldn't be here today. So
exactly.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think like, I hope everyone listening, you know, can really have like a new perspective on what a wealthy life could really be. I guess maybe we can close with our closing question.
Yes. This is going to be our last episode for this season, which is crazy. But we wanted to just put this out there so people can really start to understand what we want this to become, what we want Wahine Wealth Club to be, the community we want to build, the kind of guests we want to speak to, the questions we want to answer. So we really hope that this was like a good initial taste of what we hope to offer in the future. And for anyone listening that wants to see this continue, that wants to be a supporter of Wahine Wealth Club, wants to be a part of this community, we would love your input. We would love your feedback. If there's people that you want us to be trying to speak with as guests, people that you think really embody the Wahine Wealth Club mission and values and pillars, please let us know. We would love to be able to expand the audience, expand the community in that way. And we just want to encourage you guys to really pursue some of these things we talked about today. Start doing the work, start having those conversations with yourself, and really start trying to find your ikigai, and putting these things together. I know it sounds hard, but again, big rocks of change. Start with the big things, work backwards, and before you know it, you'll be well on your way. So Angela, closing question today. What's one way you generated wealth in your life this week?
Oh my gosh. I feel really like an abundance of wealth this week, just with the conversations that we've had, you know, between me and you, between our guests, between just all of the interactions and then the many amazing people that I have the opportunity to work with. It really feels like when you have a good conversation, it's like magical. Like there's magic in the making. And I feel very blessed to know such amazing people, to have different perspectives and outlooks, and new ideas come up.
Yeah, I love that. I think I could totally agree with you on that one. I'm right there with you. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for being a part of season 1. And we can't wait to see you guys for season 2.
Like
Have
and
a good
support.
one. Yep.
Thank you guys.
See ya.